This is our 2008 Volvo XC70 wagon. Now, this is what happens when Volvo's been trying to merge its two personalities together. Volvo, on one hand, has what basically is mom and pop's wagon. They're known for building a nice, dependable station wagon. In fact, the joke was that although mom and dad might have to pay a little more to get the car, what ended up happening is that when they had their first child, they'd buy their Volvo wagon, and the car was dependable enough that by the time the kid was ready to go off to college, they gave it to him as a graduation present. Now, the other part of Volvo, though, is a little more underlying. Volvo, when they first showed up in the 60s, had a car called the PV444. That eventually became also the PV544. But what that car was it actually wasn't anything like your mom and dad's car. It looked a lot more like the Beetle than anything else, and so it became part of the counterculture. And what those people did at the counterculture of the 60s, they brought it more into the intellectual people of the 70s, and that just elevated the car's image all that much more. Well, their children became the yuppies of the 80s, and those people bought a lot of BMW 3 Series. So in comes a Volvo again as part of the counterculture. If you were a yuppie but didn't want to look like a yuppie, you bought a Volvo. BMW was selling performance at the time, Volvo was selling safety. It also didn't hurt them that they were selling turbochargers and intercoolers with it at the same time. So what that did was it gave Volvo that luxury European look, that European feel, and that idea sort of carried on in, got the attention of Ford. And Ford purchased Volvo in the late 90s, and they wanted to carry on that luxury tradition, and that's where the XC90 came from, this car's big brother. Now, the XC90 was just a big, nice luxury SUV that was supposed to be trendy. This car, again, merges that personality. It's mom and pop's wagon, but it's also that nice, trendy SUV luxury car. And when you take a look at the styling, it's very much a Volvo. It looks kind of boxy, and, well, that's what Volvo's kind of known for. In fact, back in the 80s, Dudley Moore had a famous line where he made fake advertisements for Volvo. And what he did was he basically said Volvos were boxy but good. And the thing about that is that kind of stuck with Volvo, and Volvo's been actually trying to get rid of that image for a while. And you can see that they still keep the boxiness, but they have a nice, sleek car. Now, in taking a look at this, the car is distinctly European, but you can't quite pin it down, and that's the hallmark of Swedish design. If you really want to get to understand it more, drive your Volvo to your local IKEA. Go out there, take a look at the furniture there. You'll start seeing everything is very squared, but it has rounded edges to it. Everything's in one color, but they also offer you little extras to it, and that's exactly what we have with our Volvo here. Everything has a nice, sharp line, but you have everything rounded. There's a sharp line going down the entire car, but it rounds out right at the door. Also, just like at IKEA, it's one single color, but they'll offer you nice little chrome pieces like chrome legs for your table. You can have the chrome wheels, and it sticks out all that much more. Now, the car itself looks a lot like a wagon, and the truth of the matter is, it's very much based on the V70 wagon. But the difference is here, it's the all-wheel drive. They're going for that SUV kind of thing, and so it's raised up a little more. It's got the flared wheel arches. It looks a little bit more brawny. In fact, this is exactly what it is. It's a tough version of mom and dad's wagon. Now, we've brought you to the back of the car because wagons are something that Volvo does really well. This is pretty much the standard wagon back that Volvo has always made, nice, square. It's using their now trademark tail lamps that go all the way across the back pillar. And as I was saying before, something that you usually won't pick up on, but Volvo's now doing this with their naming. It's nothing big, but that's actually what started back on their first cars, the first cars in America, such as the PV series. Again, we brought you back for the wagon for one reason. They know what they're doing. It's space, a lot of space. This is what you have a wagon for. Since this is all-wheel drive, you can fit your skis or whatever else goes in here. Tie-down rails for cargo, anything that you want, a dog. But also, they give you a little space here to hide things. It's on an actuator. It's the little things that they come up with because Volvo's been doing wagons for just that long. Now, the interior for XC70 is a very nice place. All the materials were done in a very well way. It's either wood, chrome, or a lot of it's done in this tan that we have in our tester here. And what it does is it gives this nice atmosphere of quality and premium feel, and it makes you feel almost okay about spending around $45,000 for what is kind of just basically a station wagon. As I said before, though, the materials are very nice. The leather on the wheel, it's grippy, it's smooth, it feels well. But Volvo also got it in the details too. The plastic in the center console area, it has a nice soft touch to it. It almost feels like leather. They've thought of the little details about they hide the cup holder behind a nice bin. But also, Volvo has one of the things that I like the most is that their climate control system. It is one of the most intuitive ones around. They have what basically looks like me, just a nice little driver there. Well, actually, hopefully it's a little bit of a rounder version of me, but it's intuitive. You know exactly where, just by touching the button, you know exactly where all the air is going to go. A nice surprise for us, though, was the stereo system. Volvos aren't usually known for their stereos, but this one was particularly good. We even have a staff member who likes to play his music very loud, and he said it actually maxed him out. Before he could get to the top end of the volume, he couldn't listen to it any louder, and it was clear the whole way through. But then again, you don't buy a Volvo for the sound, you buy it for the safety. And this car has got plenty of it. Starting with the door. As you saw on the outside, we were showing you that the door actually bows out a little bit. Well, on the inside it comes in, and what that actually does is it gives Volvo a very large area to put in a safety cage, and that makes for a very solid door. In fact, to take the door out, when you bring it back in, it closes with that big solid thunk that makes you feel safe, and quite frankly, it's a heavy door. It almost feels a little bit like a little workout when you bring it in. But that's just for starters. Airbags. Plenty of them. You get your standard front airbags, but what you also have is you have your side curtain airbag and you have your side bolster airbag. And what that does is Volvo wants to make sure that if something does happen, no matter which way it comes at you, you got something soft to go into. Another key thing in a Volvo is that when you're in an accident, whiplash will usually happen. If you have to go forward and come back, it's a very violent motion coming back into your seat. What Volvo has developed is they actually have a whiplash protection system where by when you go forward, the seat's actually going to come forward with you. So as you come back, the seat's going to cradle you more, and hopefully then that's going to prevent a serious injury. But Volvo isn't just thinking about you, they're also thinking about your kids. One of the touches it has here is the child-proof locks. In most cars, child-proof locks are a manual operation that you have to go back into the back door, and it almost is a little bit of a hassle. Here in this Volvo, what we have is it's actually right here next to the window controls. It's just one quick button, and with a click, that's it. It's done. Your children are locked in. And that's not all. Volvo's actually had a couple extra interesting safety features for your kids, and we're going to go in the back now and show you what it is. Now we're back in the back here because, as you know, you've got a Volvo, so you've probably got the kids. And all little children should be in a child safety seat. But what a lot of manufacturers are realizing, especially Volvo, is that even after they've outgrown the safety seat, they may not be big enough for the regular seat. So that usually requires a booster. Volvo has it already built in. With just a little flick of this, your regular seat turns into a booster seat. And if the kid's still too short, it boosts up even more. It's just another way of looking out for your family. The best way to describe the drive in our XC70 is that it's like an agile tank. And that is, this car drives like it's big and heavy, and that's because it is big and heavy. It weighs over 4,000 pounds because, well, all the safety features, all the all-wheel drive, that's going to weigh down the car. But it's very directed. The steering is very intuitive. The car has a very small turning radius. You point it where it wants to go, and it goes there. It just goes there with some heft. Now again, the gauges are laid out very nicely. What it is, it's called a floating needle design, and what that means is that both the middle of the speedometer and the tachometer will actually give you information about the car, meaning you don't really have to take your eyes off the road as much. Well, and that's a good thing, because if you're driving a Volvo wagon, you're going to take your eyes off the road a lot, because in the back there's going to be kids, dogs, or something else that's probably going to be a distraction while you're driving. And this car makes 235 horsepower of its inline six and has about the same amount in foot-pounds of torque. That's good, but as I said, the biggest problem that I think we have is that it's made it to a 6-speed automatic transmission. And where the problem comes in, not a very big one, but because there's 6 speeds, you don't have any tall gears. If you need to pass somebody on the road, you go from 6th gear, you floor it, it's going to drop you back all the way to 2nd gear. And what that means is you're going to make a lot of big, great noise from the engine, but you're not going to gain a whole lot more speed. What we could do with maybe a few less gears, but a few taller gears, and that might solve the problem. But again, not a very big problem, just something we'd like to see a little more. There's even a sport mode. You could go right over into sport if you really need it. And again, we're by no means calling this car slow. What it is it's a Volvo. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's European. It feels good. But above all else, it's safe. And because of the all-wheel drive, It's the safe, go-anywhere car.